Hey, hey, Shady Gang. Told you to get used to us popping up with most dope surprise guests. Once upon a time, he was a music industry executive. What? From there, he hit the Hakeem dream shake, pivoting from music to television and movies. Falling in love with writing whilst developing Date Me. Tony Collette optioned a script to him? What? There's Baker's Son, which is a modern Moroccan crime family drama, which we will take some time to unpack. I could keep going, but I've already chatted with him for too long before, and I told him we had an hour. Most of Shady Gang know him as a preeminent voice of Manchester City football, especially knowing about Baker's Son. He 1,000% fits the Podfather moniker. Folks, family, Shady Gang. Give it up for Ahsan Naeem. How's it going, homie?
Wow. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I can live up to that intro. I'm definitely not sure that I can live up to that intro. But I'm really good. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
The honor's all ours, trust. And yeah, like everything I said in the lead up, I would kind of like to start from it. We don't even have to stay here long, and I don't want to get too much into the business, but about the whole music part, like what kind of genre music did you work with, and how did you work with it? Were you a director? Was it more production? Were you the connection guy? Were you an artist?
No. So I've done pretty much every job. I've done a lot of jobs in the music industry. So I've been a manager, I've done A&R, I've worked in distribution, I've worked in marketing. Like
Hmm.
I've worked in most aspects of the industry, but mainly I was an artist manager and I did A&R for lots of labels. And A&R is basically it stands for artist and repertoire, but it's basically being a talent scout. So so that was kind of most of the first part of my adult life. I was really lucky. I started working in music when I was like 18, 19. And very quickly I started making money. Yeah. It became a full time job for me by the time I was 20. And then all the way through my 20s, I was really lucky. Like I lived 20 something's dream. Like I got to travel all over the world. And, you know, you make a list of people that you want to meet when you're 16. I probably met most of them by the time I was 30, if not all of them. So so yeah, so that it was like the first part of my adult life. Although like I was definitely not an adult for most of the time.
Well, honestly, in that but what I did was in a extremely smaller than yours, but I too used to throw concerts and work with artists and stuff like that. It was very Midwest regional local aspect. But I definitely didn't do much growing up because in order to do that, you have to look inward, and that is the last thing you really got time to is to think about yourself and how you're doing until
Definitely.
you have a moment to
Definitely.
rest, and then
I,
you're just
I
like,
don't
what is
I,
all this?
I don't think that I even really knew why I started working in the music industry until I left the music industry. And I think maybe one of the most kind of profound realizations of my adulthood, yeah, was kind of when I realized that as much as I love music, like I just went to work in the music industry because it was like it was somewhere to belong. Like there was like a sense of community, or like I'd always felt a little bit like an outsider in. Yeah, I moved around quite a bit as a kid, and so you kind of you're constantly making like new connections, forging new connections, and it can be quite challenging. And I think that like by my late teens, it kind of felt like I didn't really belong anywhere. I'd lived in LA, I'd lived in Manchester. It just everything felt a bit like I felt very displaced in a way. And so the music business was like a really easy thing to fall into in Manchester, where you go to gigs every night. You make friends going to gigs every night. And then you begin to meet people who work in the industry, and your ego jumps out of your body and goes, hey, I want to do that. Right. So then you go and you start doing that. And before you know it, you're in the middle of it. Right. And then, like, I was in the middle of it for, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And yeah, like, you don't do much growing. You're frozen in time at the age at which you start doing that thing, I think. I
Yeah.
mean, like, there are people who can grow with it and who become very good at the business side of it, but I was never really in it for that. I don't think I was ever really in it to even make money. Like, you know, I was in it for all the wrong reasons. I think I just wanted to be a teenager. So it's like, what job can you do that allows you to be a teenager all the way through your 20s? Oh, yeah, I know. I got work in the music industry.
Oh, I love all that, and I feel all that with my soul because that's very similarly how I got into the whole thing. It was just vibing, met the right people, and just kept going. And all of a sudden, yeah, I'm just throwing shows for 3 years. Uh, and but let's get to the writing part because Date Me. First off, that sounds like a rom com. Was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was not a rom com. It's the only comedy thing. I mean, I've written something comedy recently, but it's like the only comedy thing that I've ever written before this year, and it was the first thing I ever wrote, and it kind of came about in the most weird, like a lot of things in my life. It kind of came about in a way that was just a bit me bullshitting. I I met a woman at a New Year's Eve party who was the one of the directors of a theater in Antwerp. It's like the oldest theater in Antwerp. And at this New Year's Eve party, she starts telling me how they have a hole in their schedule for the following autumn, fall, um, and they want to play in the small room in the theater. I think the small room held like 300 people, something like that. So she's like, and I'm like, what kind of play? She's like, I know what kind of play we want. So I'm like, tell me, what kind of play do you want? So she's like, yeah, like, like, I'm surrounded by a lot of single friends, and we're all in our like 30s and 40s, and I kind of want to play about, being single in your 30s and 40s in Antwerp. And my ex lived in Antwerp, and I'd spent a lot of time in that scene with people like that. I was like, and part of me was just like, I know why you're fucking single. Can I swear?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Okay. So, so I was like, I said, I'll write it. And she kind of looked at me like, yeah. And I was like, no, I'm really serious. Like, give me your business card. I'm going to write it. And like, so she gave me a business card. I sent her an email the next day, or 2 days later. And she was like, fine, write a scene. So I wrote like the opening, I don't know, like 4 pages or 5 pages, and sent it to her. Um, and she, like, she was like, okay, write the play. That's great. And that was it. Like, I wrote the play in like a week or 10 days or something like that. And I sent it to them, and they put it on, and it did really well for them. Like the run. So I think, if I remember correctly, my memory is really bad. So if this turns out not to be true, then so be it. But I think that it was only meant to be 3 months, and then it ended up being 6 months because they did really well with it. Although, looking back on it, I should have had an agent, because definitely I think I only got paid like €1,000 to write that thing, and I'm fairly sure that pretty much everybody else involved made more than the €1,000 that I
Oh
got.
yeah. I mean, if they did push it for more shows, it definitely did well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And they had like great reviews. They did like I went to so my current wife, our first date was the press opening night of Date Me in
Oh,
2007.
nice little flex.
Yeah, like, I was like, hey, I've written a play, and they're doing like a press preview. Do you want to come? And she was like, yeah, I'd love to come. So that was technically our first date, but yeah, so that's how Date Me came about.
Okay. 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 So, shout out to Lando. He is the newest member of Shades of Blue. He wasn't able to make it. He sent me a couple of notes, and he was the one who was like, Baker's son, a Moroccan crime drama. I need to know as much as I can about this. What?
Yeah, I mean, so The Baker's Son is a long and winding story that began in 2009 or 10 in the back of a tour bus somewhere in Europe with a friend of mine who is a film director and a musician, and we were both on tour with a band, and neither of us really had a job to do, so we were just in the bus being stupid. Yeah. um and I'd read this. So he told me a story about a bakery in Antwerp where, like, the dude who owned the bakery dropped dead. Like, when they went in the basement, they found, like, basically like kilos of coke, right? And it was like, oh, okay, so this dude was running a bakery, but it was a front for something way bigger. And so, like, I immediately was like, how does that happen? And so my friend started telling me about the port of Antwerp and how, like, it's the second biggest port in Europe. And so you have, like, millions of containers that pass through the port of Antwerp every year. And statistically, they say that they search 2% of them. But actually, in truth, they can't even search 2% because there's just too many. There's too much traffic going through the port. And so, like, along with Rotterdam, the port of Antwerp is like a very serious place. And then when I began to dig into it, like, so for example, the largest representation of organized crime in one place anywhere in the planet is in and around Antwerp. Yeah.
Oh.
So in and around Antwerp, you got everybody, the Japanese Yakuza, the Russian mafia, the cartels are there, the Irish gangs, everybody's there. Why? Because that's like the landing spot. If you've got a connection at the port of Antwerp, you can you can distribute anywhere you want in Europe. So that's where it started from. Like, the Baker's Son was basically like me, like, hearing this story, like, doing all of this research, and actually, you know what? The Baker's Son's like it's kind of like 9320 in that, like, it's really important for me uh, in, like, the history of my last 10 years, because so in, like, 2016, I turned 40, right? And I turned 40, and I was working at a call center in Paris because I'd left the music industry and hadn't worked for like 2 years. And then my wife was like, you got to get a job, you got to do something. You can't just sit around and complain about how nobody will read your writing. Because I was writing, but nobody would read anything that I would do. So anyway, long story short, that Christmas, my best friend is getting married in New Zealand. And he's like, you got to come. But I couldn't afford it. And my wife was like, we're going, I'm going to pay for it. And so we go to Australia and New Zealand, and I meet Tony at the wedding. And like, I'd met her husband Dave already, and we'd got on really well. And then I met TC at the wedding, and she was like really cool with me. She was just like very, very cool with me. And she was like, if you ever write anything or you want me to read it, or, you know. And so I'm already like on the plane coming back. Like, I've got notes, and I'd actually, it's funny because I'd started writing this thing when we landed in Australia. And then when we were in New Zealand, I started talking to my wife about it, and she gave me a bunch of notes, and she was like, you should do this and this and this. And so I was already into writing this thing. And then I met Tony, and it just kind of felt like natural that she would read it. Anyway, whatever. So before I'd left, I knew this production company, and the guy at the production company had hired me to direct a music video. And then they'd started a fiction production company making like fiction television and film. And he was like, have you got any ideas? And so I'd spent like a year trying to get him to buy an idea. And in the end, they didn't buy it. And I was like really bummed out. And as I'm leaving the office in November of 2016, he goes, have you got any other ideas? And as I'm walking out the door, I'm like, yeah, I got this idea. It's called The Baker's Son. It's basically about this old baker in Antwerp who dies, and his son has to go back to Antwerp, and he finds out that the dude was basically a drug trafficker. And I leave. That's it, right? By the time I get home, the dude is like, have you got anything written down? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I write something, like write a page, and I send it to him. So we go to Australia and New Zealand. I land back in Paris. I got like 40 messages from this dude, yeah? And he's like, hey, we went to Cannes, to MIPCOM, and we want to buy your idea. Like, you need to call us because we want to do a deal with you. So I sold that. It was the first thing, because for me, Date Me doesn't really count. Like, that was something that happened in 2007. It was so long ago. So The Baker's Son was the first thing I ever sold, first thing I ever got paid for as a writer. And the crazy story about that is that, like, I sold it to this little production company in Paris. Like 6 months later, MGM Studios in LA buy it off the production company because they're like, we love this. And so I spent like a year and a half working with an amazing showrunner in Belgium and Steve Stark, who ran MGM TV in LA, developing the series. And it was an education. Like, the first thing that I sold, it ended up going to MGM, and then I worked with Steve Stark for so long that, like, you know, you can't help but learn from somebody who has that much experience. But it was also like, it's also a great learning curve because then Amazon bought MGM, Steve Stark left, and the Baker's Son died. Like,
that I hear so many stories like
you can put
just
all
like
that.
that.
That's like the life of a TV writer. But it was like I'm really lucky in that I feel like a kid in this business because it's new for me. Everything is like a gift. Like, I find it very hard to believe that people pay me to write. People pay me to write. And now they pay me well to write. And that's like an even more like surreal space to find yourself in. But, you know, it's life.
Love it. All right. This is great. Obviously, learning this background on you, it just adds
I thought
to
we
the
were just
legend.
I just thought we were gonna talk about fucking Haaland and City and shit. And I'm doing an interview about my life here, for Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Shades of Blue. We are multifaceted. Oh man. Okay, so let's start with City's treble last season. The joy we felt from the football club was immense, and we're over here in the United States, not able to regularly attend matches, even with the network you have. I would love to hear about your experience through it all. Where were you when City did the treble? Could you take us through maybe your instant thoughts or maybe favorite memories from that?
So I went to the Champions League final in Porto, and that was like a really weird, surreal experience because it was still COVID and the stadium wasn't full. And this is just so weird. Like, I bought a ticket on the day. The ticket, it turns out, was like City's overspill. So basically, behind me was like Soriano, Begiristain, uh, like 4 rows back is like Noel Gallagher, and it's like basically it's the City hospitality bit, and the row that I'm on is like the analysts and the coaching staff who don't sit on the bench on a match day. They're all sat around me. And so it was such a violently traumatic experience to sit there and lose that game in such like meek fashion
Yes.
that when we when we got to the final this year, from the moment we got to the final, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go. And everybody was like, you're going to go. You're going to end up going. And I was like, I don't think I am. And so, yeah, so in the end, I didn't go. And actually, it was almost like, I'm not sure that I have the facilities, yeah, to deal with like the emotional or the intellectual facility that you need to deal with going to a Champions League final, knowing that if you win it, you win a treble that only United have done before. And not only that, but ours will be better because we beat them in the FA Cup final. It was just like the compound factor of stress and emotion was way too high for me. So, like, I made an executive decision that, like, I'm going to stay in Ibiza and I'm going to try and keep it, like, low key ish. Yeah. And so, and bearing in mind, like, the league was won, like, once we beat Arsenal the second time, it was done for me. Like, it was just like, all right, they're not, City were in that groove. The FA Cup final, it was won when the first goal went in. Even though they equalised, it actually was won when the first goal went in, because psychologically, United were never coming back from that. Even though they scored a goal, it was never a penalty. It was a gift. But so the kind of, on the day of the Champions League final, the pressure. Like, when I woke up, my first thought was like, I'm so glad I'm not in Istanbul, because if I was in Istanbul, I might say to people, I don't think I want to go to the stadium. I think I might just, I'll be all right here. It's cool. And so what did I do? I arranged to go and watch it in the Hard Rock Hotel in Ibiza. They have a sports bar, right? And a friend of mine had said, oh, I know another City fan who's going. Why don't you book like a big table? So we booked this big table. But actually, like, I'd invited friends of mine who don't even like football, because I was like, you know what? If it goes wrong, meh, like, turn the screen off. Your friends it'll be fine.
Yes.
So, and then the game happens and De Bruyne goes off. So when De Bruyne went off injured, I was on my knees already. Like, I was just like, I cannot believe that happened again.
Again.
And I couldn't, and we didn't. So controversially, City hadn't played well since the second leg against Real Madrid, right? I think that emotionally, after that night at the Etihad against Madrid, I think they were pretty exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The kind of team that had got them there, and they played pretty shit after that, all the way in the build up to the Champions League final. So it was like, let's see what they perform like. And it was pretty obvious 15 minutes in that, like, as soon as Gundo misplaced a pass, it was like, all right, so we're back to where we were in Porto, yeah? Everybody's playing the occasion. Nobody's playing the game in front of them. And Inter Milan, they've come with their best. They're the best version of what they are, that they're going to be, which is they're just going to be defensively almost impossible to break down, and they're going to kill you man for man. They're going to die for every ball. And then Kev gets injured. And so going into the second half, I don't know. I suspect that at halftime, I was already getting prepared to lose in extra time, because it just felt like this is going 0-0, and I'm not sure that we've got the legs or the kind of mental capacity to get through extra time and potentially penalties. But I thought we were better in the second half. I think that it began to feel like we were going to score. And then of course Rodri scored, and I cried. Like, you know, a combination of the booze and just like the sheer relief of like we actually scored in a Champions League final. Um, and then yeah, after that, I don't really remember. Like I remember Lukaku missing, um, and I remember thinking, how the fuck did he miss that? Like,
Truly.
like I was just like properly like, how the fuck did he miss that? And then it was like, oh well, our name's on the cup now. Like if he's missed that, then it's over, bro. Then like the gods of football have decreed that we're doing this treble, um, and that was it. And then it was over. And then I was awake until 6 a.m. FaceTiming people all over the world. Yeah, people in Istanbul, people in Manchester, people in Paris, like just everywhere. I couldn't sleep. Like I could not sleep for yeah. I didn't get to sleep until like 6 a.m.
Yeah, and I
And
was
actually, by rights, I should have been out cold soon as we started drinking it. It was hot, bro. It was like 35 degrees. It's like 90 in
yeah.
whatever it is Fahrenheit. It was
Mhm.
like 90, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 90% humidity. We got
Yikes.
to the Hard Rock Hotel at like 6 o'clock because I was excitable. The game didn't kick off until 9. So, I should have been fast asleep at 1 o'clock. But the the fact that we won it just, yeah, it was.
Ah, come on. Yeah, I, we, 2 years ago, the 3-2 comeback against Villa, we did a watch party for it. And I almost started crying when we've made the score. And it was just because of my emotions. Like, I legitimately was just like manically laughing. And you could see like my eye, I had no idea what to do, how
Bro,
to feel.
City have done that my whole life, right?
Man,
City have done mad, mad thing. The 99 playoff final, yeah. I, I haven't got the capacity or the facilities to tell that story now, but trust me, that in and of itself was they know how to put us through the ringer, basically. Sorry, I cut you off.
oh no, you're good. I actually became a fan of City because of that whole 99 final. I was playing on FIFA as a kid and just flipping through all of the leagues and the teams. And in the second division, I bumped into Manchester City and I loved the sky blue and I loved the logo. And I had no idea there was even another team in Manchester because all you ever heard about was this stupid ass red team called the Manchester Red Devils. I was just like, I hate this team. I knew really not much about football at that time. I just knew I didn't like United. So the second I found out about City, I was all in. It was very tough. I would be like opening newspapers trying to find the Premier League section in our sports paper and trying to just look at the scores. And I didn't really know anything, but I was paying attention. And just every single year, I would take it more seriously. And then I started playing rugby, and then that just helped me grow and appreciate it all more. It, but now we're in a show. I just and it being across, where we have a whole ocean from us separating us, and I never really thought Manchester City would overtake my love for the Boston Celtics, for the Green Bay Packers. Football is the number one sport I watch, and it consumes my life now. Packers can lose, and as long as one of our city teams win, as long as our baby blue baddies, our men
Mm.
win, like that's what brings me more
Do you
joy.
think? Do you think that's because objectively they've been the best team in the world for the last 4 or 5
I definitely
years?
think that helps for
I
sure.
think like I think when you're dealing with like a generational team, I think that I remember being in LA. I lived in LA as a kid, and it was like the Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar team. Yeah, it's like I remember when they won. I went to the think it was like, I want to say 99. Um, at 89 when they won the what do they call it? The NBA. What do
The
they call it?
NBA playoffs, yeah, the
Yeah,
finals. Yep.
whatever it was, and it was when they beat the Celtics, and I'll never forget like Magic Johnson going up on the like they did it in like where did that? I'll have to ask my parents because they took me. I was young then, but like I remember Magic Johnson saying, "We drink champagne, not lame beer," and that was like the funniest because the Celtics had a player called Bill Lame Beer.
Yeah, lame beer.
Um, and I remember that at the time, like for me, I was an LA Clippers fan, not a
Mm,
Lakers fan, right? Which is like so surreal to be living in LA with this like generational Lakers team and but to end up supporting the Clippers. And maybe it was connected to the fact that I was a City fan, and you know what I mean, like the kind of the fact that City had been somehow in United's shadow. So it's kind of funny that life has come full circle, where now City are the equivalent of that Lakers team.
hmm And that is kind of the most jarring thing is because I became a fan for the sake of because I love taking a smaller club and it's really anything because I live in Iowa and our college football team is meager. It has history, but it's very meager. And I loved even with like the NCAA football games, taking them and making them the number one team and stuff like that. So that's really where my love for it and then watching them grow always had a history with black players because even when I would look them up, I saw so many players that looked just like me. That was a really cool thing because I never expected that from England. And they just kind of always kept that energy and they've always had some like dope, cool, flashy at moments like black guy on their squad. And I just have always loved that. And now being able to, and that's half the reason why started Shades of Blue was, hey, I'm not really, the club is somewhat reflective of me, and I would like to be a part of a show that can reflect my thoughts. And
Mm.
so here we are.
It's it's weird though because I definitely feel um, like Manchester City Football Club is not the Manchester City Football Club that I grew up supporting, right? Um, it's a bit like Disney,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, like it's like a big corporation city now, um, and it's super impressive. Like when you look at the footprint that City have the world over, it's definitely super impressive. But I think that one of the things that the supporters do, that all of us do, um, is we keep one foot in where we came from. Or at least I like to think that, as a supporter base or as content creators like you guys are, that there is an acknowledgement of where we come from. That there's not, I don't feel a sense of entitlement to success. Losing is sometimes as fun as winning. Howard Hockin will viciously disagree with that. If he sees this or he's watching this, he'll be screaming at the screen right now. But there is definitely like as sometimes as much pleasure in losing as there is in winning, and I think that's the difference between City and Liverpool or Arsenal or United.
Mm. Yeah, I some of my favorite episodes that we're going to do is when we lose because the easy thing is to be like, okay, this one player was not their normal. Let's gang up on them. And this is my chance to be like, all right, let's look at this match in an overview. What did we see? Was anything actually wrong? Should we give credit to the other side? There are so many low hanging fruit. I love getting on my ladder and climbing up and getting to this beautiful piece of fruit that's just been staring at me and it's all perfectly ripe now. I want to have those long drawn out discussions and these deep thoughts. And that's half the reason why our episodes are as long as they are. And the people who understand and love us understand and love us. Sometimes people want the little tasty bite-sized thing where they can just go, yeah, I agree with that, and move on. But
Mm.
I just love having people, feel a way, whether you agree or disagree.
I think people like talking points, right? And they like narrative, but also they like narrative that is, I don't want to say like acceptable, but like, there's like a moral majority thing, yeah, where it's like if the moral majority feel a certain way, well, that's the narrative. Um, and I think the challenge that at 9320 it's not a challenge because we're not like one thought, like we're loads of different thoughts. And so it's very rare that like you see like clips from what we do because like we try not to um when you put a clip out, it becomes like even if it's one dude's opinion, it becomes like the opinion of the podcast,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so we try not to do that because we're not like thought leaders. We don't want to lead a narrative. We want to create content that satisfies everybody in the round. Yeah.
Right.
So if you have a room full of 20 people, everybody gets a little piece of what they're looking for from the podcast, and everybody goes home feeling represented. And I think that's more interesting than jumping on like a talking point or making or trying to create narratives.
Yeah.
And look, I'm sure there'll be people that will go, yeah, but you said this and that became a narrative. And it's like, well, no, it's like for me, the difference between a narrative and an opinion is a narrative is something that multiple people do. It's very rare that happens at 9320. Like generally everybody's got their own viewpoint and it's always subtly different from everybody else's. Hey, let me
I
ask
got,
you a question.
yeah, go for it.
Is it like, do you feel like you get taken less seriously because you're American?
Uh, we yes, at the beginning of our show, that was the biggest thing I felt like we were fighting against. Naturally, supporting a highly successful team and being Americans, that was the easy insult people could throw at us: is American plastics, American plastics. Uh, and we fought hard against that our first year. Uh, but our big thing is listen to an episode, and that's what we always try to push people: is check out an episode and then let us know if you think we're dumb Americans. Because if you listen to us, not to pat ourselves on our back, but we talk our stuff. We know our football. I do everything I can, especially as Black people, because of the fact that we do have to work exceptionally hard to get half as much. That's just like it's saying Black people say. And so we're just used to having to prove and prove and prove ourselves. And so now we're at the point where we are just trying to be ourselves and do our thing. And people can give us a hard time, but it doesn't affect me like it did when we first started. Now it's expected. It's kind of hardy hard hard. I guess the only time it would affect me now is maybe if it's someone I respected and then they kind of threw that at me, but it wouldn't upset me. It would just be like, okay, now I see how you see us. So I really try to just not use it as a reflection of us, but it's just a reflection of their thoughts of whatever American football information and content that they've taken in to have them, I guess, think negatively of American footy fans.
And do you feel like the space is competitive? Like, do you feel like you're competing with other platforms?
Like non-American ones or American ones?
Both, like just in general in the content create. So I try not to make. I appreciate. I asked the question about um, whether you feel like you get taken seriously, but the in general, the question about like competition in the space is like a
Mhm.
more a general question. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel like you're competing?
Yes. I not even for the sake of talking crap and like Phil, I do think that we put out consistently some of the best and I hate using the word content, but some of the best content with true and honest thoughts. I put a lot of thought into how we connect with other people and how comfortable we bring our guests in. One thing that we hold our head high on is like when City won the treble last season, we had Arsenal, Liverpool, Brentford. We had like La Liga and Serie A fans adding us, congratulating us because they respect not the club because people feel the way about City, but us, the show, who we are. They love us despite the club that we like, and that was huge. Honestly, like I will probably talk about that day, and that's what makes, I guess, winning the treble so much sweeter to me is because of just the general respect that we get from other people. So I guess when it comes to the Man City, other people who make shows, obviously people with you, it's great. We had Noisy Pod on our lit stream. The respect is there. But I'm never one to want
No, but
this.
listen, nobody
Yeah.
can compete with Noisy Pod, so there's no point in trying to
Well,
compete with
and
them
I don't even mean like
because
compete like that, but
because those
because
two
the
guys,
reach.
like
Yes. Yes.
we should put them on television. Like City should hire them, right? And
You
they should
honestly.
run like because they are like
They're great.
a natural. They're like a buddy cop movie in the podcast space.
Their
Like
chemistry together is
it's
disgusting. They came on. They
outrageous.
they literally just they took over the lit stream, like legitimate in like in the best way. But they're just like going back and forth, and I'm like, how do I even hop in here? It's just
Bro,
like watching.
I've had them on podcasts and like 20 minutes in I realized that like they've like just like killed me, like murdered me like 18 times in 20 minutes. They've murdered me and I've not even realized it. Suddenly I'm like halfway through the podcast, I'm like, "Oh my God. I should just quit now and just give the pod to them because like I can't get a word in, and when I do, it's like I just sound like an idiot compared to those two. So no, I have an awful lot of love and respect for what those two do. I think they do it in
They,
a high level way.
yeah,
Like if my day starts badly and Noisy drop a podcast, I might just stop everything I'm doing and just put Noisy on.
facts.
Even if I don't listen to the whole thing, listen to 20 minutes. It's entertainment. So you know, it's you shouldn't think about it as like a you know like I've got lofty peers. We're all the fucking same. There ain't nobody gets to sit on a throne and go, I'm the best. I'm the king of the city content creators. I was here first. I do the most. I do this. No,
Yeah, I get
no,
the
no, no.
gatekeeping part, but also that's easy to say when you're kind of on the top of the mountain or you're getting there. It's easy. It's like you guys are up there and you're like, oh, look at
It's not a
shades of
mountain
blue.
though.
I know, I know.
It's not a
I'm joking.
mountain though.
Sorry, sorry. This is me.
We're all
This is
just
me
stood
potting.
on.
This is me
So
potting.
so
Sorry.
it's like basically we're all actually just stood on the beach, bro. Right? And so everybody is just looking at the waves and going, "Am I getting in? Am I riding that wave?" Yeah. And some people they get in, they ride the wave. You get lucky. One day you catch a big wave. Next way you catch a little wave. That's all this is. Like there's no you, like I can't take this seriously in the sense that it is entertainment. It's a game show. Like it's Big Brother, basically. It's an extension of what began with reality TV and blah, 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 blah. It's just like people's fascination with regular people is fascinating, and we all do it. We all watch some form of reality TV and we all listen to podcasts, whether it's like true crime, it's football. But the point is, it's not fiction, it's like real people. And that's actually what is the most attractive thing. So, yeah, it's like a long winded way of saying there's no. There's no hierarchy and there's no
Yeah.
gatekeepers and there is no fucking mountain, bro.
Well,
There is
unfortunately, there
definitely
are
no mountain.
gatekeepers. There are. We bumped into a few, but I know what you're saying though. I know
Define a gatekeeper.
someone who questions your legitimacy publicly.
Okay. So, I mean, like, unless they can have your videos taken off YouTube, they're not really gatekeepers.
Yeah, I know. I
It's
know.
just an
Yeah.
opinion. It's like, if somebody, loads of people say what we do is shit. Like, I'm under no illusions that we haven't created a platform that everybody loves. We got a platform that some people like and some people fucking hate, right? And the people who hate it will always hate it, and
Man,
it's
shout out to
cool.
those though, because you need those haters. You actually, I feel like you need haters more than you need the people who love you, because the haters are
Oh
the
yeah,
ones
for
who
sure.
will
I'm
actually push
motivated.
you
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, I'm motivated by, like, everybody's competitive, right? And
Yes,
everybody's got their ego, and I'm motivated by the people who talk shit about me.
same.
People who talk shit about 9320 or talk shit about me personally, or, like, you know, hold themselves in a higher regard. Like that, I don't need any more motivation than that. Because, like, you tell me that you're better than me, or you act like you're better than me, and I'll prove to
Yeah,
you that you're not.
yeah. I mean, that's how I tend to actually channel any strong emotion I have towards art, and I feel like that's what creatives do. I can be super sad and I'll create something. I can be mad and I'll create something. It's just I just have to feel something, and
But
sometimes you don't.
it's like I think it's for me. It's like a minority thing as well, right? Like, I'm
Mm,
fully aware of the fact that I'm a minority, yeah, and that, like, whether I like it or not, of course I've got a chip on my shoulder, like everybody does, like,
mhm.
like, or certainly most of the people I know who are minorities, like, we got chips on our shoulders because, like, we deal with shit. We
Yeah,
deal with shit that people who aren't minorities don't deal with, and there's, like, all of the subtle forms of dealing with shit that nobody else sees, but you see it really clearly, and you go, oh, so you coming from that angle. And
yeah,
everybody else, like, what are you talking about? Like,
yeah.
you've been oversensitive, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, okay. So, but all of that stuff is like, it's just like, it's not even like about podcasting or content creation. That's just like more about, like, life. Like, when you
Yeah,
step out your door, like, you're motivated by good things and bad things in any aspect of life. But there is no greater motivator for me than somebody treating you like a lesser person, or, like, looking down their nose at you, or any of those things. Like, for me, all my life, it's been like, as soon as somebody says that I can't do a thing, I do the thing.
yeah.
And I'm quite lucky now. Like, I'm 47, and I can say it. Like, I've done everything that every time somebody's gone, you can't do that, I've done it. Because I don't believe in the idea that you can't do it. I just believe in the idea of, like, I just need the right motivation and the right kind of focus, and I'll do whatever I need to do.
Let's go. Man, I know all these people who hopped on and they're like, oh man, I can't imagine the football talk. And now, bro, this is, I honestly love these conversations just as much because it's with people in, the football community or whatever. But life is, we're all living. We're all go through experiences day by day, and how we treat those moments, positive and negative, that is what makes us our individual, gives us our individualism. And so I really love hearing how people experience what they experience and what they learn from it. And so I feel like I've learned much more about you just through this chatting than any of these questions. And the good thing is, Shady Gang, this isn't a one off. We will be back every 4 to 6 weeks, and this will give us more time to talk football. That's why there seems to be no rush for me to be like, I need to fit in some football conversation.
Dude,
Us building and getting to know each other like this.
we'll do
Now
the
think of the next episode. It's gonna be so much better.
we'll do the football chat in 5 seconds. City are the best team in the world. Guardiola's the best coach in the world. We just
Let's
won the
go.
treble. The conversation's over. Like, I don't need to say anything else, right? Like, what else do I need to talk about? We're going to talk about Calvin Phillips. I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that at all. At all. Hold on.
Our
Sorry.
vibe. We feel confident in our vibe of our fans.
Yes, there we go. Vibes. That was specifically what I was saying at the end of last season when we won the treble. Next season is all about vibes. I want all the chaos. I know we're gonna have huge turnover. 2 years ago, I was thinking we were gonna be losing Ilke and Mares, and I was kind of pushing to get what we're seeing now with the youth. And honestly, I don't even think the team went all in this season with it, and we're kind of learning in real time that you can't like waffle. And I honestly think that that's kind of what City's doing right now. They're not do you want to stick with your tried and true players? Do you want to embrace the future? But that's also tough when you are expected to win the way
Yeah,
that
but you have to
City's
do
expected.
both. You have to be able to do both. You have to be able to evolve your team whilst continuing to win. That fundamentally is the challenge of any coach at any top club. And I think in Pep, we have the best possible person to both evolve the team and continue to win. And we shouldn't forget, he's evolved this team twice already. We just haven't really noticed it, right? We went from Vinny, uh, David Silva, Aguero, Sterling, Sane. I mean, people forget like Gundo and Bernardo when they arrived at City. I'm not sure they played like I think Bernardo played a lot at the start. Maybe not, but my point is more that like there was already a core there that Guardiola used, and then that team evolved into something else, and then teams evolving again now. So it's like I almost feel as though evolution is perpetual. It's been sped up by the fact that Gundo and Mahrez left and De Bruyne got the bad injury. I think that it's almost forced us to face a reality that maybe it's a year early. I think maybe I know they didn't want to lose Mahrez, so I think they psychologically they were prepared to lose Gundo, but I don't think they were prepared to lose Mahrez. And then you lose Mahrez and you lose KDB at the same time. That's like that's a lot of creativity, a lot of goals, a lot of assists that have been taken out of your team. And look, Phil and Julian are doing an amazing job, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that Jack will come back stronger. Doku has obviously hit the ground running like nobody's business. So the future is. I've been saying it since preseason. I think we'll get 100 points, and I know we just lost 2 games on the bounce, but I still think we'll get to 100 points because
Mhm.
the 2 games we lost were like just like very strange games. Like I think they follow a kind of early season City pattern that I expect after this international break to have gone away. I
Yeah.
I I, I expect us to go on a run now, and I think actually the fact that we play Brighton and United first 2 games back is perfect because it's like okay, it's time to sharpen up and focus now because those games you just played, they were like easy games, right? With the exception of Arsenal away, like all of that early that was easy. And in the easy run, you lost to Wolves, dickheads. So now when you come back, you can't be like that. There can't be, you know, you don't have space for that kind of performance. You have to turn up and put your big boy shoes on and play big boy football. And the fact that we're playing top teams, really good teams, and Man United is is really is
Let's go.
really it's going to get us. It should have everybody playing their big boy football.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, I guess is there was there any of the questions that I sent you that you felt compelled to talk about? Okay, because I feel like this is an amazing stopping point. I've had you
I'll be
for
back in a
90
month.
minutes.
I'll be back in like a
Yes.
month, six
Oh man,
weeks.
I'm super. And okay, so people listening, if there's something maybe you want us to discuss and you thought that we were going to talk about, let us know in the comments on YouTube. There, DM, whatever. I don't really care. Just reach out to us. I do. I can't say in enough words how much I appreciate connecting with you and the relationship that we will continue to build. I thank you, everybody. Ahsan Naeem, 9320. If you don't know how to get a hold of him, you really need to do better as a City fan.
Now, listen. So I got to do my plug because I'm really shit at marketing.
Let's
So
go.
obviously, if you haven't listened to the 9320 podcast, go to our Twitter page, go to the SoundCloud. We put like the first 15 minutes of every show that we do on SoundCloud. So people who like it can sign up. It's like, I think it's like £4, like $5-6 a month. But you get like, I don't know, we do like 8-10 hours of podcasts a week in your ears, available on Apple, blah, blah, blah. Like it's I think we do pretty good shit, basically. Like, if you're into city and you're into listening to podcasts, like when you're traveling or you're on your way to school or work or you're cleaning the house or got to walk the dogs, get on 9320, man. We'll keep you company through all those moments where you need keeping company.
I agree, but what I will say is walking dog is good, but maybe even like cooking. But there are certain things where you guys have my focus, so I can't be doing something too crazy where our side will have to like back up, hit that 15 back a couple times, and I'm like, wait, what did he just say? Oh, okay, cool. So, yeah,
Yeah, we should
things,
do it. We should do a cooking podcast because I spent the morning cooking this morning, so I'm all in for talking about cooking.
and I love food so much, like so much. I don't know if you see, I'm posting about the food I'm cooking all the time, and I know that you could definitely teach me some delicious recipes just from your background and honestly just talking about living in France. Like I'm sure they're just like, yeah. Let's get out of here. Shady Gang. Do the things, rate, review, 5 stars, or what's the point? Like, comment, subscribe, all those teams. You know the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady Gang.